Okay, so let's move on to the slides. So again, going back to yesterday's discussion, a lot of claims were made, but I wanted you to support your own claims by using references and evidence and getting sources. So to help you with that, I gave you a link. This is for the bust side. If you are concerned about eating meat and what it's doing to the environment, then this is one resource that you can use. I mean, it's not doom and gloom. It's not like the UN is going to say, yeah, we shouldn't be eating meat. That's not what they're saying. They're saying the current levels right now is something that we should all be concerned about. And as people, as we have more people on Earth, and as they become more affluent, as they become more developed, you can expect that they want to eat meat. You can expect that if you're living in a relatively developed country, the meat consumption is going to go up. So if you live in a poor country where meat is rare and expensive, then people don't get to eat it all that much. But if you live in an affluent country like the US or any European country, Korea is probably one of them, then meat consumption skyrockets. Why? Because they have more money in the pocket, so they can afford to eat meat, and it's relatively more available, so it's easier to get meat. So that's kind of the situation. Well, that's what the UN FAO is saying. With more increase in human population, and as countries become more developed, they will eat more meat. So you're expected to have an increase in meat consumption up until 2050. It's like something like 70%. Or I'm not sure. It's actually on this link. So if you click on this link, it's a PDF, it's a 16-pager, but most of it is just infographics like this. So it's not going to be lines and lines of text. It's going to be actually more images and graphs and stuff like that. So it's a lot of resources for you. And this is just a starting point. You can use this link to do other research, and you can take the keywords from here and then put it in Google and then see what will spit out, and you can use that. To talk about the two images here, the two graphics here, the one on your left is talking about regional distribution of emissions from livestock. As you can see, Latin America, South America has the biggest toll or biggest impact. Why? Because they have the most CAFOs there. They're chopping down trees in the Amazon to make room for cattle. And Brazil is like one of the biggest countries that raise a lot of beef, and they sell it to everyone else. And US is one of the major buyers of beef from this region. China has a huge pig operation. Chinese people or Asian people eat pigs, pork, a lot. Probably more so than other regions. So they have a huge pig animal farming operation over there in China and in the Asian countries. So you can see throughout the globe what kind of impact or how much of livestock is there in certain regions, and how much of that is causing an impact. As you can see, the orange portion from the left-hand side, that's cows. And then it goes on to milk, goes on to pigs, poultry like chicken, and other small ruminants like sheep, and so on. The one on the right says sources of emissions in livestock supply chains. What you have to understand from this is that when we talk about meat production, it's not like you buy straight off the farm, right? The farms are way, way away, very far apart, and it's not like the people who are raising the cows are going to be chopping them up. That's not how it goes. They raise it, they give it to another facility where they will kill it and then chop it up and then put it into portions and then send it to your local groceries or your supermarkets. So the entire process from cows to the meat at the counter, the entire thing is called the supply chain. So from start to finish, from the farm or the factory to the plate, what happens, right? Over here you can see that animal feed consists of 46.7% of the carbon emissions. And enteric fermentation takes up 39.1%. What this means is that cows burping and farting. That's what it is. When they digest food, when cows digest food, it will create methane in their bodies, and then they will fart it out or burp it. And that is the cause, or one of the causes of carbon emissions. And that consists of 39%, or almost 40%. The big part is feed. So what are you going to feed it? And like I showed you on the first lesson, monoculture and feeding them grains, a lot of grains, instead of grass. The reason for that is that it makes the cows fatter. And everybody likes to have a good marble on their steak. They don't want dry, lean, meat. They would prefer to have a juicy fat on it so that it tastes better. So Korean beef, they have grain feed as well. So grain-fed beef, grass-fed beef, these are the terms that people will use. Is it 100% grass-fed? Some people just would only choose to eat that. So there's a supermarket near here called Saroga, and they sell organic grass-fed beef. And it's from Australia, and I tried it. It's pretty good, actually.
Do you live near here?
No, I don't. But I live near Yongsan.
Oh.
But I do shop there because they have a lot of organic produce or organic meats.
Saro what?
Saroga. It's very it's right there. It's right there, walking distance. So if I want some organic beef at a reasonable price, because the prices are really reasonable at Saroga. It's not Korean beef. It's Australian beef.
Really?
Yeah, it's Australian beef. So they import it, but the prices are really reasonable, and I would say rather cheap compared to the prices you would have to pay for Korean beef. Yeah, Korean beef is really expensive, really expensive. So, and to find organic Korean beef is even harder. It's even harder. Again, Korean beef, the reason why a lot of people say it tastes good is because they feed it grain. And if you feed it grain, it makes it fatter. So it makes the meat tastier. But people who are concerned about feeding it with just grains, it's like they're not supposed to be eating grains, they're supposed to be eating grass. That's what ruminants are doing. They're supposed to be eating grass. So I would only want my beef to be grass-fed. I only want my...
But how do you know that if you just look at the beef?
Well, you don't know. You don't know. You see the labels. So if you see beef on a regular supermarket, usually it's fair to assume that they will be feeding it a lot of grains.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of it's GMO, which is why it makes the price go down. But if you say this is grass-fed and it's organic, then you usually expect the price to go up. But people who are concerned about that, they'll say, I only want my cows to be grass-fed and I want it to be organic.
But then what's the difference between grass and fed? Don't they taste the same?
No, they taste very different.
Really?
Yeah, they taste very different. Grass-fed meat tends to have less fat in it, and it's harder to cook because there's less fat in it. It's easier to overcook it, so you gotta be very gentle. And the texture of the meat is different. So yeah, there is a reason why farmers would prefer to feed it grain so that the meat tastes better. But if you look at CAFOs, they're not going to be sourcing a bunch of hay or grass because they don't have any over there. So they're going to be importing a lot of feed from monoculture and say, hey, give me how many tons of corn, and we'll just throw it onto the mix and they'll feed it there, right? So feed, the food that these cows eat consists of almost half, or makes up half of the emissions produced from livestock. So that's another important factor that you guys should think about. The next slide talks about the boon side. I didn't want to leave the boon side, hanging. I wanted to give you some stuff. So if you click on this link, then there's a lot of scientific papers, news articles, infographics, give you more ammo. Same thing with you guys. The reason why I'm doing these two links is that I'm trying to give you more ammo. You have more stuff to talk about. More stuff to talk about. The graphic on the left tells you that a lot of the methane production or methane being produced from cows is one of the key concerns. And this infographic is telling you, yeah, these claims against cattle are way overblown. So it's not as bad. It's not as bad. The one on the right tells you, yeah, it doesn't drink all that much water. the most of the water is from rainfall, natural rain. So as long as we have regular rain, then they should be fine. That's kind of what they're trying to tell you. Again, if you look at this link, it will give you a lot of ammo for the boon side. Okay, and that's it. So the essay question or the title is asking you, critically evaluate whether eating meat is a boon or bust for the environment. Please explain your reasoning. Don't just say, bam,
'Cause it is.
and done, cause it is. No,
And yeah.
you don't wanna do that. You wanna say, I think so because so and so and so. If we assume this, that, with this source here, that source here, supports my claim, supports my arguments, so there. Instead of, yeah, because, just because, or probably, or we don't know, but yeah, I'm sure, I'm thinking that. That's not a good way to argue. You want to get ammo from different places and say, this is why I can say this, because I have all these evidence to prove, or at least to support my arguments, okay? That's it. That's it for lesson 3. And I'm gonna give you, 10 minutes to discuss amongst your teams, and we'll have another meeting today.